So, here's some interesting shit. Do you plan on making other remakes from the compilation? Dirge of Cerberus, Weiss and Nero were in Crisis Core FF7. They also appear in 7 Remake Intergrade. What are their other? Will they make another appearance? Wow, Nomura saying our staff really wanted to do a remaster of Dirge of Cerberus as well as before Crisis, but after taking into consideration the costs of doing so, we do not have plans at this time. Nomura, you know what? You might be doing some crazy shit. Your Nomurian bullshit has penetrated the lights of Kingdom Hearts, but Final Fantasy VII has never truly been yours, and I am glad to have you on board, buddy. I am absolutely glad that you're on board and you're sharing this load with like Kitase and Hamaguchi and like the new director and all these other people. I'm glad that you're not just solo piloting this ship. You've done something different because you absolutely 100% could have gone back and made a PSP 2 game out of that shit. You could have made a Vita game out of Dirge of Cerberus. I am very happy to be here for them to say we're not going to be remaking Dirge of Cerberus. I'm just so happy to be here, Chad. Give yourself a clap on a pat on the back. Oh my god damn. We wanted to show them an Intergrade because we wanted all of the FF7 titles to be connected with a common world, aka the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. They also appeared as very formidable bosses, so that's why we decided on that. And that was fine, right? That was fine. You can even stick Genesis in the game in some way as like a hidden boss fight, and I'm fucking cool with it as long as it's handled like Weiss was, right? Granted, Weiss is literally Hojo's weird, degenerate virtual bitch of himself, right? That is actually what that character's story is. It's dumb as fuck, and it's incredibly, brutally stupid. It's VTuber Hojo. It's actually what his story is. But the way they handled it in like just making it a bonus fight, making it this big test and stuff like that, because those things eventually happen way after FF7 concludes, is good. Like that was the best way you could have actually had done this. And I think even the way they handle, what's his name? Like the weird vampire dude that has all the wings and shit. I think he was also handled pretty well. Nero, he was handled pretty well as well. Thank God, right? Make them formidable bosses, like bonuses. Don't make them like critical parts of the story. You came in and heard VTuber Hojo. VTuber Hojo is the lead bad guy of Dirge of Cerberus. So let's talk about Ever Crisis. We saw a younger Sephiroth with shorter hair at the end of the trailer. That's right, since 7, the First Soldier's World is also included, there will be an what? There's an episode regarding First Soldier? Wow. So we're gonna go all the way like 10 years before the events of FF7 and get an Ever Crisis episode about that? Holy shit. You're telling me we're gonna play like young Sephiroth, possibly as a playable character in Ever Crisis? I didn't pick up on that. I didn't know they were gonna actually do that. Yeah, Sephiroth during like the Wutai War? Well, that would be when Zack is around, right? I think it's even before that. Maybe. Let's move on to 7 Rebirth. We see Cloud and Sephiroth walking together, and that's a scene from Cloud's flashback, right? Of course it is. Yes, that's correct. Due to some rules regarding what info we can show, the UI has a portion of it that's turned off. This made some people think that it's a new scene, but I just wanted to clear this up. Was there any confusion regarding this? I'm assuming no, right? If I was to actually ask you guys, actually, you know what? There was confusion because immediately I remember when people saw that trailer, there was a bunch of takes on forum and shit that, oh, they're redoing the story, right? Oh, I was like, wait, no. Yeah, why does Cloud have the shoulder pad? Why? The mountains in the background are very distinct, so I hope that it allows you to recall the original's location. Oh, they're not even telling us that it's Nibelheim? In the original, Sephiroth joins your party and fights with you in the flashback. Will that happen again? Please wait for more information. Of course it will. In fact, I think it would actually, I think it would be even better. Because once again, this goes all the way back to like game FAQ 90s days where people were talking about ways to control Sephiroth, and you could actually get like game sharks and stuff to control Sephiroth if you wanted to stick him in your party. That was all over the place. That was a huge like rumor thing that everyone said way back when we didn't have the concrete information age. It's weird, right? I'm gonna say it's weird to have devs so in tune with what people actually felt of the original Final Fantasy VII. Maybe it's just me, right? It could just be me, but the fact that the developers seem so directly in touch with what people loved about OG FF7 and how do we preserve that shit? How do we keep the things that make people happy? How do we exemplify the things that made you feel those ways? Jesus Christ, man. With such a vast world that opens up to you, anyone would be excited to start their journey. In the trailer, we see Zack carrying Cloud on his shoulders as they make their way back to Midgar. We hope that Rebirth will give you that feeling of opening up to the journey. Zack is a key character in this game, so please look forward to it. Zack is a key character in this game. As Laguna was to Squall, yes, he kind of just a little bit. I'm sure there are different possibilities regarding that scene, and really makes you theorize. Since you mentioned there will be 3 parts, where exactly will 7 Rebirth cover? Ooh! I gotta have to give a shout out. Whoever they got to get this interview at 4Gamer, like they didn't send some Joe Schmo, right? Whoever was at 4Gamer in Japan, and you're like, hey, you get to interview Nomura and Kitase and the Crisis Core director? Like, or was this Famitsu? Okay, so this one's Famitsu. Whoever was at Famitsu, they got a fanboy or a fangirl, one of the two, a fan somebody, to eventually go in there and be like, all right, so I got some beef with you guys. What the hell's going on? Why is he alive? I'm asking it again, you know? So Nomura's like, we have not announced until recently how many parts this story will be, as we actually were considering whether to do it in 2 or 3 parts. So only 2 parts. Since 7 Remake covered just Midgar, it left us with the impression there might be 3 or even 4 parts. The original game was only on 3 discs, with the international version on 4. This is a weird thing to me because so many people like look at the discs of FF7 as essentially being like story beats in some ways, and they end at really appropriate moments, but they're not, right? Like, that's the weird thing about everyone's impression of OG7, because they're not. Like, disc 3 is just there as like an asset retread because disc 2 has so much fucking CG on it, right? Disc 3 is essentially just a dungeon, and if you want some small extra fights, that's about it. And that's the weird thing. So many people have this thing where it's like, oh, and I didn't say they were going to do a trilogy because of disc 1, 2, and 3. Not at all. The only reason that is the way it is because disc 1 of Final Fantasy VII treads like a lot of new area, and then you're able to retread those areas again in disc 2, and then you retread every area. But then now the different thing in the old game is that, oh, there's not as much cutscenes. The cutscenes were very expensive data-wise on those old CDRs, so that's the only reason why there was actually a disc 3 in FF7. So we started planning with 3 parts in mind. But there was a time when Kitase suggested that we divide it only into 2 parts. By the way, Kitase, the person who wanted to kill everybody except 3 party members on the return to Midgar in Disc 2, right? This is the man that wanted everybody to die when they go back to Midgar, and you would choose 2 other party members that would live next to Cloud. And Nomura is like, what? No, fuck. Like, Nomura stepped in and was like, no, do not do that. Don't do that. Please don't. It was one of the ideas I had among the many different ideas we were tossing around. We were planning 7 Remake. It was difficult to see exactly how much manpower it was going to take. But after completing 7 Remake, we had a much better picture of how much manpower and what type of schedule it would require. I'm talking about this for years. I just love hearing the devs directly say it. That's why I had thought that we might be able to reach the ending with even in the next installment. So here's the crazy part. Even possibly at the end of part 1, when they started working on part 2, this is back in like 2019, actually before part 1 was even released. At that point, it might have been 2 games. It might have actually had been 2 games, but if anybody like understands a little bit about how game development works in this industry, once you have a foundation, everything goes significantly quicker. And to be frank, I thought the Yuffie DLC was substantially longer than I was ready for it to be. I was not ready for this like 6 to 8 hour DLC that that covered a lot more ground and essentially did a huge amount of gameplay changes that I really wasn't ready for, and also offered like a bunch of new mini game stuff. I was like, damn, dude, Integrate feels like it could be a sequel, you know? And they were only able to pump that out at the visual quality that they were looking for because they had the foundation to work from. They figured shit out with FF7. This is further establishing the fact that if shit worked out and they now have all these, not this engine, but they have all these combat systems and all these different traversal things and these character rigs and all this complicated shit that takes literally years to get online before you can actually really start development of the game. If all that shit is done, then you just go. Now it's just about getting like new systems online, which are just modifications of old systems, as well as getting art and assets. And what is the thing that I keep telling you guys over and over again? You would think that, man, how are they going to make all these environments? How are they going to make all these textures? How are they going to make all the art for this game? There's so many locations. There's so much art. How are they going to do it? Believe it or not, in this industry, if shit is figured out on a project and they know where they're going, art comes online the fastest, the absolute fastest. Nomura said, at the moment, we do not plan to do more than a trilogy. Since 7 Remake only took place in Midgar, people might be worried that the remaining 2 installments will have too much content and might have to omit something. Damn. Is Nomura reading the forums? Rest assured that we will not condense things as each installment has a lot to offer. Damn, is Nomura reading Twitter and the forums? Is he? Does he have like a secret burner account or some shit? He must be. The amount of content to cover after leaving Midgar is a lot, so we're looking forward to it. The game will be released next year in the winter, so that's very soon. It will only be about a year and a half away, so before that, we will also have Crisis Core, 7 Reunion and Ever Crisis. There's also The First Soldier, which is already available. Yes, that's right. I did not want fans to just wait patiently for 7 Remake Part 3. Whoa. I don't want people to wait patiently for Part 3, so I wanted to allow fans to continue enjoying the world of FF7 and connect them to the trilogy. I think they mean Part 2. Our staff is doing their best, and we really hope to look forward to the game. Kitase says the basic part of Rebirth has been completed. The basic part of Rebirth has been completed, and right now we're in mass production phase. We're making great progress on the game, so please wait a bit longer. Cool. The game is presumably releasing December 2023. That's just because they said approximately a year and a half. Chat, that's not... This game isn't coming out in 2023. For anybody that is curious, this game is not coming out next year. It is a 2024 game. I'm going to tell you right now, do not get excited that the game is going to be coming out in 2023. They said winter, and that definitely doesn't mean the beginning of winter. And that makes sense because that puts it like 7-8 months after Final Fantasy, potentially 7 or 8 months after Final Fantasy 16, you know? Oh, people were confused about the December 2023 release date. This interview was posted July 7th. The interviewer says the release of the game is about a year and a half. This makes the time schedule for the release around December 2023. Right, but they say about, right? This isn't like a specific... We are waiting, fucking 497 days or something like that. No, it's about. Nomura did say that's correct when the interview to ask him about the game release 1.5 years. However, I personally feel like they will push the release date to early 2024 since 2023 seems stacked. I was actually quite convinced the story would be modified with some sort of surprise. Nomura says, there's a reason we're keeping things unchanged. If we were to alter it, there would no longer be any point in portraying things differently in the 7 Remake project than they were in the original game. We fashioned Remake such that you finally unravel the mystery of what's going on when you reach its end. The intention behind taking that approach wasn't to change the past. Therefore, Crisis Core Reunion's story hasn't been revised for the reason that history has not changed. Just once again reacclimating the fact. I mean, I think we read something pretty similar to this, even though it was from Famitsu, you know? They're already like reestablishing. So with Crisis Core Reunion being released, I can't help but think about the respect to 7 Rebirth. In Final Fantasy VII Remake, you also had stuff like Deep Ground. Let me make my face bigger because this is just big. Make an appearance. Is there any chance that something like Project Genesis could be involved with Rebirth in the future? I mean, they actually do mention him in the original game. Kitase says it's true that just like how Dirge, Weiss appeared in Remake, elements from past spin-offs, such as premises and characters, might be fleshed out and added into Rebirth. However, as Nomura mentioned just moments ago, our plan is to respect the story of the original Final Fantasy VII as things progress. We're trying to push ahead while keeping our toe inside the line so that we don't cause players to feel the story's very premise has significantly changed. So that's good. Yeah, you're still going to get, you know, Cloud and all the same party members doing the exact same things in pretty much the same ways. That said, Rebirth and the remaining title in the trilogy are still works in progress, so please have fun trying to imagine how things will turn out. Okay, so new experiences and new narrative developments. Why is that? Nomura says, when you once again played through the story, played through the mystery of Nibelheim, which is the single most important part of the original game, players will get impatient saying, yeah, I already knew all of this. Wow, okay. In short, the game would only reconfirm the same plot point. Launching such a large project based on that sort of paltry payoff and that gameplay experience would have been difficult. That said, if the story were to change entirely and become something completely different, it would lack significance. The challenge we've undertaken with this project is introducing new mysteries without straying too far from the original. Holy shit! So if anybody's curious what this means, it's best case scenario. It is actually best case scenario. Completely respecting the old stuff. So in the same crux, you say 7 Remake had the same crux as the original, yet ended up feeling like a different game. And it seems like 7 Rebirth is all the more poised to share a common crux, yet turned out to be a different game. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask, rather than simply remaking the game using modern technology, you chose to steer the game in such a direction that it might be considered a different title despite having the same crux. Shit. Interviewers asking, you all made a fucking sequel, was what they're saying. Whoever's doing this interview, they're straight saying, y'all chose to make a sequel, right? And Nomura's like, we're of course aware that some people might think it is better to simply leave the original as it is and make the presentation more beautiful without changing anything. However, if that had been the scope, I don't think we would have been able to invest as much into creating it as we have. And I have to say this again and again and again. Devs don't want to do the same shit that they did before. They hate that, right? When you actually get yourself in a creative environment, chat, you don't want to just repeat something that you did back in the day. It's the most creatively bankrupt shit in the world. So what you want to do is do something that is as close to something that you did back then, but make it new. Like, create something that is absolutely new, that allows you to have a bit of creativity with where things are going. Because it's demoralizing if it's just like, hey, any of your newer stuff is bad, just make the old thing again. Don't change anything about the old thing, just make the old thing. And I think, like, yeah, some other devs like Capcom have a really good head on their shoulders in this situation where they remake Resident Evil 2. It's pretty much Resident Evil 2 that you remember, but completely different, right? It's redone in a way that is completely different, which is fun. It's fun to re-envision something the way that it used to be with a completely new spin. And he says, back when we first got the project off the ground, we wanted to make sure that even people who played the original game could enjoy new experiences and new narrative developments through its content. That was the task we had to tackle. We can't just remake it, right? We can't just do the same fucking game where you go do the exact same fucking things and there's no mystery. Thank God. So I see what you mean. I'm very much looking forward to it. In a sense, the show really only begins once you leave Midgar. That made me worried if we'd really still get that due to the sheer development of resources required. Hearing your response puts me at ease. Katase says, I suppose the knowledge and experience we gained from Remake Part 1 has helped us manage that. As I mentioned, things are proceeding smoothly, but the resources involved are significant. So we're really firing on all cylinders with little time to lose. Nomura says, we've heard concerns like, can you really show everything in 3 parts? Won't it end up being abridged? But I can assure you, the audience, this won't just be a Cliff Notes version. You're going to get that sense of openness and freedom after leaving Midgar. Quite the opposite. I think people are going to wonder at how we managed to handle so much material in such a short period of time. Who knew it would take until Final Fantasy VII Remake? Well, potentially. This bitch could be lying. Granted, right? Granted. Like, in the same way that I was like, we haven't played 7 Remake Part 1 yet before it came out. And I was like, this game could be a piece of shit. It could be like the biggest piece of shit ever. He could be just lying, right? He could be just gaslighting the holy, just blowing the thickest cloud of smoke directly up your ass. And now you have a contact high based on what he's saying. But he could not be lying, right? They could be selling the truth. Who knows? Who knows, you know? Who knows?